Oxygen. As soon as we hear this name, we think about the air we breathe. But what is it actually? Why is it so precious? How is oxygen produced? How is it the important resource for the hospital in COVID-19 pandemic? What is the difference between the atmospheric oxygen and the medical oxygen? Please watch the video completely to know the answers for these and many other questions about this elixir, oxygen. And also, don't miss the interesting facts and questionnaires about the oxygen at the end. So, what is it actually? It is nothing but a chemical element which is the third most abundant element after hydrogen and helium in the universe by mass. Moreover, oxygen makes up to almost half of the Earth's crust in its oxide forms. Oxygen is generally seen or available as a diatomic, colorless and an odorless gas at STP, that is standard temperature and pressure. Now, talking about some of the chemical values and physical properties of oxygen which many are not interested but generally important, so here they are. Now, coming to why is it so vital and precious? The basic and simple reason is its property of oxidation, which helps in combustion or heat. This process is used in our body as respiration, where oxygen diffuses through membranes in lungs into red blood cells. This oxygen is used to break down glucose into ATP molecules, which provide energy for our body to sustain. During this process, CO2 and water are released as the byproducts after combustion. An adult human at rest or ease inhales 1.8 grams to 2.4 grams of oxygen per minute, which is about 6 billion tons of oxygen inhaled by the humanity per year. Apart from its importance in biological respiration, oxygen plays an important role in making things from rocket propellants to our regular day-to-day household plastics. Our very known ozone layer is nothing but O3 molecule, which is an allotrope of oxygen O2. These O3 molecules form a blanket-like layer in the upper surfaces of Earth to form the ozone layer, which protects us from the harmful ultraviolet rays released by the sun. Well, it has many important uses, but how is this oxygen produced or formed? From our early ages in school, we have been taught that trees produce oxygen by the process of photosynthesis using the carbon dioxide released by the living organisms. But this isn't completely true. Trees only produce about roughly 1/3 of the Earth's oxygen. Then where does the Earth get its rest of the oxygen? It's the oceans. Yes, the rest 70% of the Earth's oxygen comes from the oceans. So how does ocean produce this elixir gas? The ocean produces oxygen through phytoplankton, algal plankton that live in it. Planktons are nothing but plants and animals that float along the mercy of the sea tides and currents. So these plants produce oxygen as a byproduct of photosynthesis. Now, as we came to know how oxygen is produced, let's know how has it become the elixir for nations and hospitals all around the world in this pandemic. There has always been oxygen demand for various purposes. But due to the surge of the COVID-19 pandemic, demand for oxygen has skyrocketed as the oxygen is used as the crucial treatment for many patients with severe COVID-19, since this disease affects the lung function. One of the telltale symptoms is shortness of breath, which can be followed by pneumonia as the lungs filled with fluid. If a person can't get enough air into their lungs, this means oxygen can't travel to other organ systems, which in turn can affect the whole body and the organs to fail. Many might be wondering that there is about 21% of oxygen in the whole atmosphere, yet there is a shortage. But the point to be noted is that in hospitals, normal or industrial oxygen is not used. Rather, a special grade oxygen called medical oxygen is used. So, let's see what's the difference is. The difference is that the purity levels of industrial oxygen are not appropriate for human use. There can be impurities which can make the person using ill. Whereas the medical oxygen, that is high purity oxygen, is used for medical treatment and is developed separately for it. Medical oxygen must be free of contamination and cylinders must be thoroughly cleaned before use. So, how is this medical grade oxygen produced? There are various methods through which LMO or liquid medical oxygen can be produced. The most common production method is the separation of oxygen in air separation units or ASUs. ASUs are production plants that separate large volume of gases. ASUs use a method known as fractional distillation method to produce pure oxygen from atmospheric air. In addition to these procedures, there are also portable medical oxygen generators known as oxygen concentrators that can be used at home. But these only produce about 5 to 10 liters of oxygen per minute, which may not be enough for patients who have severe complications. But why is this supply unable to meet the demand? Firstly, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a sudden rise in the number of patients, which led to an unexpected rise in demand for oxygen that suppliers couldn't match. Before the pandemic, the demand was about 700 tons per day or TPD, but during the first wave, it increased 4 times to 2800 TPD. Further, during the second wave, the situation has worsened and the demand rose more than 7 times, about 5000 TPD. So, does every COVID affected patient or person need oxygen assistance? No. Patients with oxygen saturation level 94% or above do not have any assistance of medical oxygen. It means there is sufficient oxygen in their body. Medical officials have also stated that even oxygen saturation level of 90 to 93% should not be considered critical. This level is only a buffer that enables the patient to reach the hospital on time. Only people with levels well below 90% and 80% should use the medical oxygen. For a normal person, the oxygen saturation level should be in between 95 to 100%. Now, let's see what does this saturation level indicate. Oxygen saturation refers to the degree to which the hemoglobin in your red blood cells has bonded with oxygen molecules. Oxygen in the bloodstream comes from your lungs and is taken in when you inhale, which is then circulated throughout the body by red blood cells by the process of respiration. Now it's time for the most awaited interesting facts and crazy questionnaires about this elixir. Did you ever thought what would happen if oxygen is lost for just a span of 5 seconds? Here is what happens. As the ozone layer is made up of oxygen, the earth would become an extremely dangerous place to live in due to the severe sunburn. Our inner ear would go explode due to the atmospheric pressure difference. In between all this taking place, the earth's crust, which is 45% of oxygen, would completely crumble until nothing is left and send everyone on the planet into a free fall. Looks scary, right? Then start planting trees to maintain this oxygen level. Is there a place on earth without oxygen? Yes, environments without oxygen can be found throughout the earth, from places as unglamorous as waste management plant to a deep hydrogen thermal vent on the ocean floor. How long can we hold our breath? Most people can hold their breath for somewhere between 30 seconds to 2 minutes, but the Guinness World Record for the longest breath held voluntarily is 24 minutes and 37.36 seconds by a person named Budmir Sobak. Now let's see how long you can hold your breath. and share your duration in the comments. Now it's time for some unheard facts about oxygen. Oxygen is very reactive that it forms compounds with every other element in the periodic table except for helium and neon. Fresh water contains about 6.04 ml of oxygen per liter and seawater contains about 4.95 milliliter per liter. The name oxygen was first used by the French chemist Antoine Laurent in 1777, which comes from the Greek word oxygenis, that is, acid producer. Did you know that too much oxygen is also bad and can cause bends, which is small bubbles in the blood that are mostly common for astronauts and scuba divers? 300 million years ago, when oxygen levels were higher, insects grew bigger and bigger, and the dragonflies were once as big as a bird. The green color of the aurora or the northern lights is caused by the solar wind particles colliding with oxygen atoms in the Earth's atmosphere. After all this importance of this precious gas, take a moment to take a long breath and thank the nature for giving such a lifesaver in the air which is all around us.